We're doing a learning lab. Workplace dust. Does your lab meet the standards? This is sponsored by Dental Brands Australia, and they're our distributor here in Australia. And if you have any questions afterwards, they're at booth 98, and we'll get you what you need. First off, I want to make sure everyone can hear me. Can you hear me? Great. All right, so my name is Kyle Galenza. I'm the Vice President of Sales and Marketing for Vaniman Manufacturing. It's a dental equipment manufacturer out of San Diego, California. We manufacture dust collection machines and dust collector accessories and air filtration devices. We've done it for 35 years. Well-established company in the U.S. market. And so today I just want to present, basically provide you guys awareness on the different dust applications, the hazardous materials, and prevention in your lab and or clinic. Okay, so the first thing I want to talk about is all the materials that are in the industry. We have acrylic, which is basically for all the dentures, aluminum oxide, which is for sandblasting, cured resins for 3D printing, gypsum for models, stone models, porcelain for restorations, pumice for polishing, zirconium for restorations, and then there's other materials, metals, and chemicals. All of these materials vary in their toxicity and the amount that you can consume, inhale on a daily basis. Some are more toxic, some are not. The biggest thing is to find out, which one's the most toxic. And so I'd like to see a show of hands of any of you that have worked with this stuff in the past 20 years. Okay. What I would like to do is go into the most toxic one, and that's silica. It's most commonly found in porcelain, pumice, and gypsum. And if you consume or inhale silica dust, you'll get what's called silicosis. And this is a form of occupational lung disease caused by inhalation of crystalline silica dust. It is marked by inflammation and scarring in the form of nodular lesions in the upper lobes of the lungs. The important thing about this is it's irreversible. So if you get silicosis, you can't go backwards. It just only gets worse over time. So the best form of action is to basically prevent being exposed to it. The current regulations dedicated or determined by the TGA, the Therapeutic Goods Administration, is known as the PEL, permissible exposure limit levels for silica is in Australia is 25 micrograms per meter squared or cubed over an 8-hour period. So that's a very small amount in a rather large area over 8 hours. This was previously 100 micrograms back in before 2017. Now in the U.S., as a result of Australia's findings and the change in their your guys' regulations, we've now changed the U.S. to 50 micrograms per meter cubed. Now, to give you an idea, this is a 200 milligram ibuprofen. So you can see I've blown it up on the screen here. And 200 milligrams doesn't seem like a lot if you look at it this. And the regulation says it's 25 micrograms. And that's moving the decimal place over a couple. That's 3 spaces. And in porcelain is 14 to 18% silica dust. So what that means is if you grind down this 200 milligram pill, 14% of it, as you can see, is silica dust. Next to it, you can see the PEL micrograms of dust that you are able to grind before hitting that limit. So as you can see, 0.138 micrograms is a sliver of this. that's the amount of dust that you're allowed to consume or inhale in a day, in an 8-hour period, to be healthy. And I know a lot of people in this room have grinded way more than that in one sitting. So pumice is the next thing. It's 70%. So that's 0.035 micrograms. So that's even smaller, and that's such a small amount. You barely touch the pumice, and that dust has 70% silica dust. So you have a high chance of reaching that threshold immediately. Gypsum has less than 0.1%. So still, that you see that number, it's 25 microns. That's a large number, but this is 200 micrograms, or I'm sorry, milligrams. And so 25 of that is just a sliver. So it doesn't take much to get exposed to silica dust in the dental lab, in the dental office. Here are a couple cases. The CDC, the Center for Disease Control out of the United States, did a report on silicosis from 1990 to 2000. These are just a couple of the cases. So case 1, I'll read you the case synopsis. In November 1992, a man aged 65 years old in New Jersey died 4 days after being admitted to a hospital with abdominal pain, nausea, and vomiting. The cause of death was shock, pancreatitis, and respiratory failure. Excuse me. At age 48, silicosis had been diagnosed in the patient. He had worked for 46 years in the dental laboratories, 27 years as a lab owner, and had performed routine laboratory operations. He was reportedly was exposed to dust, cobalt, and chemicals, and never wore a respirator. A B reader classification of a chest radiograph taken 1 day before his death revealed small rounded obsidities involving the upper zones, with provisions category of 1/2, consistent with silicosis. So he was diagnosed with silicosis at the age 48, and he passed at age 65. Case 2. In September 1995, silicosis was diagnosed in a man aged 66 in New York. He had worked as a dental technician for 30 years and had been exposed to various mineral and metallic dusts. A radiograph taken at a local hospital revealed category 2/3 provision of small nodular obsidities in the middle and lower lung regions, consistent with silicosis. Case 3. In November 1992, a man aged 67 years old in New Jersey died 3 days after being admitted to a hospital with progressive confusion. The cause of death was caused by abdemia and renal failure. He had worked for 28 years in a dental laboratory, 24 years as a lab owner. He reportedly was exposed to various dusts, performed sandblasting in dental laboratories, and never wore a respirator. So, as you can see, all 3 of these cases were exposed to silicosis, or silica dust, and ended up developing silicosis. The biggest concern about it is a lot of people don't realize or acknowledge the symptoms. And again, 200 milligrams is very small, and there's such a fraction of dust that you are able to consume, so that 25 micrograms per day is so small in comparison to what people are actually being exposed to. The next material I'd like to talk about is zirconia. Zirconia, or zirconium oxide and yetna oxide, was introduced in dentistry over 40 years ago. It didn't become popular until milling machines started coming out into the space. Right now, there's not enough evidence to determine the long-term effects of zirconia dust on your body. No signs indicate cancer, long-term respiratory issues, or reproductive issues. The PEL is 5 milligrams per meter cubed, averaged over an 8 hours time. So again, 200 milligrams, we're talking 5. Going further, the zirconia blanks are now about 80 to 99% zirconium. And so that means you are able to grind down 5 milligrams before hitting that threshold, that PEL. So I know that a lot of you are, when you're cutting out the dyes or the restorations out of the puck, are being exposed to that very small amount of dust. And if you're not careful, you can very easily get to that 5 milligram threshold very quickly. I've been to many laboratories all over the world, and I've seen technicians take the puck out of the milling machine, blast it with compressed air just in the open environment, and then cut out each of the restorations. And it's very dangerous. You're inhaling all of this stuff. Just what the doctor ordered. So I brought this slide up because in the past, our government's gotten it wrong. In the United States government, we used to recommend smoking back in the 50s as a safe thing. And so the regulations, the PEL for the U.S. was determined in 1989. That's over 30 years ago. And that's a huge problem because a lot of research hasn't gone into, and everyone here, you walk around the trade show, the exhibit hall, and there's milling machines everywhere. And so we're creating a lot more dust. And I know, after selling dust collectors for many years, I've seen the influx in the amount of dust that I've been collecting from zirconia. So it's really important that we look into this further and provide solutions to capturing all this dust. Okay, so how to be compliant to really reach this threshold that, in my mind, is really difficult to hit. You need to do 3 things. You need to have proper source capturing. You need to have proper air filtration and proper filtration as a whole. So those 3 things, I'll go into a little bit more detail. Source capturing, that is basically sandblasting, model trimming, cutting and cleaning, that's cutting the restorations out of the zirconia pucks. Grinding, acrylic, models, 3D printing, all of those things require a different type of source capturing. I'll get into more detail in a little bit. The proper accessory is tied to each one of those type of dust creation devices. And then the plumbing. Okay, the source capturing accessories, you kind of have 2 routes. One route is putting it in enclosure. So we developed different type of products where we can enclose all of your working space. This box right here is our cut and clean cabinet, and it's designed for when you take the zirconia block out of the mill, you put it into the box, you got an air blast nozzle, you can blast that out, and you can cut the restorations out, all within a nice sealed box that has that basically has a negative pressure inside of it. So it works great. And then downdraft, this is having a more exposed situation where you can have all the dust. You want it as a really strong dust collector port to collect that dust. Okay, the next is the plumbing. This is really important when you have multiple stations. We provide a design service where it's a free service where we'll go in and give you guys a free plumbing recommendation because it's really important that you balance out the suction. And a lot of companies, they'll have a line of dust collector stations, 6 stations in a row, and provide the same size plumbing all the way down. And that's a problem because the first station will take all of the suction versus the last station, so you won't have a balance. So we provide a service where we can balance it out. And as you can see in this picture, over here is a smaller pipe, and it gets a little bit bigger as you go down, but it's a small pipe going up out of each individual station. So it's very important to have that balance. Okay, next is air filtration. So the two-pronged attack is the source capturing, and then the second is scrubbing the air. So you want to have something like this, which is our Pure Breeze, and this particular model is for fumes. So you would situate this over your grinding area and have it run. The good thing is you can run this nonstop. It'll do 300 meters, a 300-meter room, 4 or 5 times an hour. So it's just scrubbing it nonstop, which is really awesome, and it's really important. And you want to make sure you have the proper filtration, and this provides you with that.
Sorry, that's like a cabinet that just recycles the air.
That's correct. Yes. So the question is, it's just a cabinet that recycles the air, and that's what this does. It's a ductless air purification. So the air goes in all through the 4 stages of filtration and then exhausts out. So we call it basically like a scrub. It scrubs the air.
So it's like a carbon filter inside, and it's got easy to treat for monomers as well.
Yes, absolutely. Works great with monomer smell. And the good thing is you can resituate the filters to meet your needs. So there's one odor filter in there. If you wanted even more filtration, you can substitute and add a second odor filter. But this one has HEPA filtration, 99.97% at 0.3 microns. So it's a very, very small particulate. Actually gets viruses. So if you're worried about corona, this will take care of it. Okay, so proper filtration, I kind of talked about the HEPA. So you want to make sure, if you're really concerned about getting down to that really small particulates, which when you're grinding, it really does get really small. HEPA filtration is very important. We provide HEPA dust collectors, different varieties, for milling applications, for general dust, all those type of things. And then we also provide a cyclone pre-filter, and that's what this picture depicts. It's basically the mechanical separation of the dust for the heavy particulate drops down into the accumulator bucket down here, and then the clean air goes out the top. It's about 95% efficient, 93% with zirconia dust. Post-filtration, it's very important to have some sort of filter on the intake of the motor. So you have a dust collector, all the dust goes into the system, but it's also important that the air coming out of the unit is filtered as well, so we can provide filtration there as well. And then the last, of course, is just wearing a mask. It's not required in a lot of labs, but I think it's important that people know that wearing a mask is completely acceptable. Okay, that's all I have for you guys. It's very short. I don't want to speak too long, too much information about it. Dental Brands Australia is our distributor here in in Australia, and they're in booth 98. They're very great people. They just got into the dental space, which we're excited about. We've worked with them for many years in the jewelry space, and so this company has recently migrated into the dental space, and we're very excited about that in this partnership with working with them. Here's their information if you want to contact their national sales rep. Inca is the sales rep, and I have some flyers, brochures I'll hand out at the end. Contact them. And if you wanted to contact me, feel free. I have no problem giving you this presentation, or if you have additional information or questions you want, there's my information. So, are there any questions at this time? Great.